What'll it be? Pick your poison.
Give me your cheapest tequila. I should probably be ashamed of that, but that. Well, I showed that opening sequence to my wife and got a solid eye roll. Whatever, I thought it was hilarious. Anyways, today, as you can imagine, I am building a bar. And this is a commission piece for my neighbor, and typically I shy well away from doing commissions unless one of two conditions is present. Number one, I need money. Really, that's it. I just need money. Behind those two glass doors back there is a half-finished Mustang rebuild. And with most car projects, they are just black hole money pits you shovel money into and just get frustration in return. And that's kind of where I'm at with that now. So this bar project came about with my neighbor wanting me to build him a bar for his man cave, and we're going to make that happen for him. Generally, the reason I stay away from commissions, though, is someone will have an idea of something in their head and they will do their best to relay all the details to you, but inevitably something gets missed. And then when they see the product, they're like, oh, I thought you were going to do X and you did Y. So I just try to stay away from those things. But I'm happy to do it here. I had a pretty good plan in place. We agreed to all the details, and I'm happy to do this for him. Plus, he's got a pretty cool man cave, so it'd be nice to see one of my pieces sitting in there. Now, I am framing this like you would a wall, and I will go ahead and tell you I've been a general contractor for about 13 years now, and I know a little bit about a lot of things, and I know a little bit about framing. So those of you who do know a lot about framing, I apologize in advance because I can be dangerous with it, but the finer details I'm probably missing a lot of here. But again, this is just a bar, and as long as it holds up the bar top, it should serve its purpose pretty well. I'm using 2x3s from Lowe's and a treated bottom plate in case there should ever be moisture present on the ground. The fun thing about rough carpentry is it doesn't have to be super exact. So I'm having fun with this, just slamming it together, and you can hide everything with plywood once you're done. Very cool. I say plywood, this is OSB, which stands for oriented strand board, and I'm going to use that to nail in all of the rustic finish, as you'll see later in the video. So far, this project went together pretty quickly, and generally you can tell how long a project takes by how many outfits you see in my videos. Here, there's a small void, and I just couldn't let that be, so I went over to my bandsaw and cut down another piece of 2x3 to slide in there and make everything fit flush. Yes, very gratifying. This is the out-facing side, so I will cut one more small piece of OSB, as you see here, to skin that outside and be done with all of that. And for the inside of the bar, I'm just using some of that 1/8" hardboard. It's like 16 bucks a sheet. I really like this stuff because it's easy to work with and pretty cheap and easy to move around. And with that, it basically finishes the structure of the bar, which brings us to the top. Now, if you follow any of my other social media, you'll see that sometimes people will see my sawmill videos and say, hey, why don't you cut slabs? You should do slabs. Slabs are worth more money, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a good reason why I don't cut slabs anymore, and a lot of it is to do with what you're watching me struggle with right here, and it's moving these heavy things around. They are heavy, they're bulky, they're awkward, and I generally just don't enjoy moving them around. But the bigger problem is they just don't sell anymore. And so this is one of the last few I have left, and it's not very flat. And while I could have saved a lot of effort by just putting it on that flattening table, it's not very efficient. It would have probably taken me an hour and a half. So what I'm going to try and do here is cut this thing into thirds and then run it over the jointer and through the planer and get it flat that way. If you've watched a few of my videos, you'll see I spend a lot of time fixing mistakes, and here is the beginning of a huge mistake. I got the harebrained idea that, hey, instead of running it through my planer, I should just try to cut the waviness out of this board with my bandsaw. Well, it was going great up until about right there. And the blade just decided, I don't feel like cutting flat anymore. And again, all of this could have been avoided had I just chosen to use the tools that are actually designed to do the work I'm trying to do, but hey, it makes for good cinema, right? Well, as per normal, it was going great until it wasn't. So the saw blade started to dive down right there, so I aborted the cut. So I took my 3 pieces inside, ran them through the planer until I got some workable pieces of wood. And hey, it went the way it was supposed to. Imagine that. All right, so the bar top is upside down. So this is the bottom of it, but it flattened out really well, except for my hiccup here. So at this point, it was time to dust off my problem-solving hat, and I decided to just cut that little scab piece off and glue it down since the kerf of the bandsaw was pretty thin anyways. In hindsight, the idea was great. The execution could have been a little bit better. I think what I should have done is, after I cut the piece off, gone in and planed down the area where all the teeth marks were, and it would have gotten a better fit than what you're seeing right here. It's good. It could have been a lot better. I was probably banking too much on the wood glue filling in the cracks too much, but ultimately, as you'll see in just a second, it worked out well enough. So right before flattening these 3 pieces, I emptied my dust collector, 55 gallons. It is absolutely crazy to me how quickly my planer and jointer can fill up that entire dust collector, but I digress. And here's what we get after a pass over the jointer and through the planer. Probably can't tell, hopefully can't tell. We'll see. It's just funny that I'm worried about this little bitty split right here when I've got all that to deal with. I have started putting down butcher paper under my glue ups because I don't like having to scrape the stuff off of my tabletop there. So this is me growing as a person. Yay. I do want to point out that while, yes, it is somehow still more efficient to cut these slabs into 3 pieces, joint the edges and glue them back together after flattening them, it just, standing at that flattening table for an hour and a half, 2 hours, taking 3 steps forward and 3 steps back is just absolutely excruciating. So you won't be able to see all the lines in this when I glue it back together. I'm almost ready to get rid of the flattening table just because this just works so much better in my opinion. And there we go. 1 piece to 3 pieces, back to 1 piece. Sometimes when I'm shooting, I'll have an awesome idea. And then I'll film something like this, showing off, I guess, my new sander that I got from Amazon. And then 3 months later, when you're trying to edit, you're like, what in the heck was I trying to do here? I don't know. But whatever it was, I was excited about it. Sander works pretty good. But I digress. This part is pretty important. There are many ways to fill cracks, and I use 3 of them. I'll use epoxy, I will use super glue, and then I will use these polyamide vinyl sticks, and it works just like a hot glue gun. The gun heats up, the stuff squirts out, it cools off, and it effectively fills the crack. Now, I've learned, especially with this project here, that there are certain size gaps that work better with certain methods. And I think for these larger gaps, as you see here, that epoxy as much as it pains me to say it, is still the better way to go for the larger voids like this. The problem with this polyamide stuff is it doesn't sand very well. So after it cools off, I will come in with a 5-in-1 blade, cut all the excess off, and then have to come back and sand it. And it's like it heats up and melts and smears everywhere, which is obviously not ideal. While I have my issues with epoxy, like it's messy, it's expensive, and it takes forever to cure, it just generally gives a better type of product in this particular application. Here you can see I'm having to go over the polyamide again and fill in little holes and bubbles. And while yes, it's still technically faster than epoxy, it's just not as nice of a finish. So after 2 passes with the polyamide, I couldn't get the holes filled, so I busted out the CA glue, went over it, and well, ultimately the CA glue just doesn't really match that well with the polyamide. So I'm kind of stuck at this point and got it as best I could, and I'm moving on with finishing the rest of the top. My Grizzly track saw here works just as good as the other green tools, and I'm cutting the edge off flush. The live edge needed some attention, so I got it with the belt sander and finished up with the palm sander, just generally making it look more presentable. Finally, it is time to put the cladding on this, and the customer requested a barn tin with some barnwood siding, I guess. So what I'm doing is I'm using these furring strips to kind of make the edges stand out so that what am I trying to say? All of the planes will be level. So these furring strips are about the same depth as the barn tin, which will allow me to go back and trim the exterior perimeter with the barn wood so that everything kind of sits flush. Terrible job explaining that. You'll see what I mean here in just a second. I'm using self-tapping sheet metal screws to fasten the barn tin to the plywood. I'm happy to report I didn't cut myself on the barn tin, so there will be no zombie apocalypse outbreaks from me at least. Have y'all counted how many shirts yet? I think I'm at 3. 3 days? That sounds right. I'm genuinely curious because I did a terrible job of tracking my hours and have no idea how much to bill for, so this should be a fun conversation. That's probably why I don't like doing commissions, because I'm terrible about tracking my expenses. And probably a good thing I'm a hobbyist, because that'd be a bad business. Anyways, here's the reclaimed barn wood going on the perimeter, and everything is on the same plane, so it just lays up there very nicely and attaches to my furring strips really well. Alright, now hardware. So I'm using threaded inserts to hold the top on, these little feet here to help level it. To install those, I use a Forstner bit and a regular bit to drill a recess. The Forstner bit will allow the foot to sit in, and the regular drill bit will allow the threaded insert itself to seat itself inside the wood. So very straightforward. Forstner bit first, regular drill bit second, and then you just hammer this little insert in. It's got little spikes that hold it in place, and from there you just thread the feet in. They work very well, they're very inexpensive, and I've never had an issue with them to date. Now for the top, I've got these angles that I cut and drilled holes into, and I'm going to drill the threaded inserts into the bottom of the top so that the bolts run through there. So I've got a piece of tape on my drill bit so I know how deep to drill. And there's 2 kinds of threaded inserts. There's hardwood and there's softwood. I have softwood because I'm a goon and didn't pay attention to what I bought. And most times they'll drill in perfectly, but sometimes these will split and you are stuck right there. You can't back it out. You can't put it in further. And so the only thing that's left to do is to bust out your angle grinder and cut them down flush with the top. And everything should work pretty well past that. Now, once it's all ground down, run the sander over it. And finally, I'm going to put a small round over on the top, and that will be all for the top construction. Finish. My favorite part, because it means I'm close to being done. Using Rubio Monocoat, this is a hard wax oil. It's a 3-part, 3-to-1 mix, and you mix it together. You stir it really good. You put it on with a Brillo pad. You let it sit up for a couple minutes, and then you buff it off with a towel. It really does not get any easier than that. Once finished, flip the top over, bolt it down, and finish the top. And that's really a wrap on this project. Overall, I would give it a 3 out of 10. It was pretty straightforward, nothing too terribly difficult, and it looks pretty good. Well, if you're still with me, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time and attention. I know there's a lot of channels out there, and I appreciate you spending your time here. I have some big things in store, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.